Okay, thanks for coming back, and today we're going to actually look at some welding. Last episode we kind of covered basic tools, basic safety, so today we're going to look at a little bit of technique and actually sticking some metal together.
You bet.
So before we do that, let's talk about the welders themselves. My first welder was a flux core, and it's kind of what we chose to use for this instructional video, but tell us why a flux core would be great for a beginner.
Well, the flux core welder is easy to get. You can get it at your local hardware store. All you need is your flux core wire, your machine, and a plug-in, and you're good to go. You don't need to have gas. You don't need to have to figure out how to strike an arc with an electrode, a rod. They're easy to run, and anybody can pull a trigger and go.
And they're also quite inexpensive. I think in our last video I found a nice little one with good reviews on Amazon for about $260. Kind of gets you started welding. So it's a good, easy to use machine for a first welder.
You bet. I find gases can be intimidating, and with this flux core welder, you don't need to have gases.
I was shopping for a welder. One of the things I did find really intimidating were those tanks of gases that I saw in my friends' welding shops. So the flux core, from what I understand, replaces those shielding gases. Maybe you could explain to me exactly what the shielding gas is doing and how the flux is replacing it.
Yep, for those welders, the gas actually displaces the atmospheric air so that you don't get contamination within your weld zone. So it prevents porosity or other weld faults. The flux inside the wire burns as you're welding and creates a gas that does the same kind of thing. Now, as it cools, it forms a slag that also protects your weld as you're moving along. So basically, yeah, the flux in our machine, in our wire, replaces that gas, so you don't need it.
Great, so it makes it much easier, cheaper to get started. We just need to grab our wire and kind of point and go.
You bet.
So, I really want to get to our first weld. But before we do, I think we skipped over a little bit of safety stuff to do with safety clothing. So if you could just give us the do's and don'ts of what to wear.
Well, although you may think you look really spanky in your spandex biking shorts and your nylon windbreaker, that's not going to be appropriate attire for welding. You're going to want something like a tightly woven cotton, or leather is probably your best bet. You could go to your thrift store and get a denim shirt.
Okay, so I'm ready to weld. I've got my cotton t-shirt, I have denim jeans, and I've got my leather shoes, so I match everything you said.
Well, no, because I'd like you to keep your toes. Leather is great, but you don't have steel toes, so you need a safety-rated steel toe boot. Jeans are great, but you are a fire hazard with your frays and your holes, and though your t-shirt is cotton, you need something with long sleeves to protect your arms.
Alright, I'll go change and then we can get started on our first weld.
Alright.
Okay, so if you can just show us some basic technique for how we would join these two pieces as the corner pieces of our frame. I know there's lots of different techniques that you can use in welding, but let's just look at joining these pieces.
You bet. You can do something kind of like a cursive E, where you just kind of circle it around and back and forth, like this. You can also do something kind of like a U technique, a backwards U, or you can do like a C technique as well. You gotta find the one that works right for you in your situation, in your joint.
Okay, so we start with a couple little tack welds to hold everything in place and give us a chance to check the alignment.
The reason that you're going to want to tack is because if you were to just do a weld and just straight up do the weld and not have any tacks, as that weld cools, it pulls everything and you're going to have a wicked huge gap on the other side that you're going to have to try and fill.
So once it was tacked, then we're able to just flip it over and not worry about the tacks on the other side, because we know the other side is held in tight and we can just go ahead and run the bead. Ruth just ran a very nice looking bead here, holding that part together.
So you can see here, in order to catch both sides of that joint, I'm going to do kind of a weave back and forth, up and down, to ensure good fusion.
The weld's only going to go where you put the wire, so you want to make sure that your back and forth motion is contacting both pieces you're joining together. You want to focus your weld on the thicker piece while just glancing over at the thinner piece. This also applies to when you're working like we are here, where one piece is an end and the other piece is welding to the middle of it. So let's have a quick look at the welds.
Now we're going to check out the finished weld here. Nice wetting in at the edges, good fusion, a little bit of a lacking in the edge of the weld there, so we're going to have a little bit of a space. You don't really want to leave edges like that. We probably should have come over a little bit farther with our weld rather than stopping when we did. That way we would have got the fusion at the corner just like we did on the first part there. The next weld, same kind of an issue with that corner there, but the join on this corner is a little bit better.
So while it would have been great to get those little pinholes fixed, this weld is going to hold just adequately for our purposes, which will not be exposed to moisture, so rust is not a problem. You can see this one's not quite as straight as the one on the left, but still great welds.
Here you can see we've got a little bit of a lack of fusion, little pinhole. Again, we're missing that corner for the final of the bead. There's a couple pinholes there, and again, a little bit of a miss on that one weld on that corner. But again, absolutely fine for our purposes today.
And you can always clean them up a little bit with your angle grinder. It just makes everything perfect prior to painting. Also a quick way to knock off the little tiny bits of splatter that you can see there, and gives you a cleaner finished product. We've been welding various different things, and this is the main material we've been using. So this is 0.65 thickness, and I use 1.5 inches on the big ones and 1.25 inches on the small ones. I chose painted ones so you can see how well they slide together. This allows you to create all kinds of adjustable pieces, removable pieces, and then what we do is we weld a nut through a hole, and we're able to just slide a bolt in there and lock that piece down. So that gives us sort of a building block for almost any type of frame project, table legs, anything that needs to be removable. There are other sizes that work well with this, but I find that this is, especially with the simulators, that this is a good size that allows a lot of flexibility in construction design and next to no flexibility in its actual usage.
Thanks for tuning in.
And make sure to subscribe to catch our next episode.